according to God, the white man is the devil.
See, I've been in here for a little minute. You know what I'm saying? And I see niggas, they like to talk a lot. They like to claim leadership. They like to claim this and that. You know what I'm saying? They like to be above what they really is and have authority. But they don't really need that authority. They don't really know what to do with that leadership. You understand? You hold hands with this white ass, need to stop it, ass you to give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up to serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Yeah. See, everybody ain't with all that peace talk. Everybody ain't with all that bygone be. Boy, ass need to stop it, ass you to prop. It's about to get serious. When they hit us with dope and kill us with crack, where the fuck with your leaders? I'm curious. He cashed out on your blood, traded you in and bought a new biz. Ask you the prophets, I tell you the scheme. If you don't wake up, you gon' die in your dreams. I tell you once, won't tell you no more. I swear these crackers try to kill us slow. Just spoke to a nigga and fed he up for parole because of the COVID. It feel like the host in this world that don't go together. Know that it's gold in the ghetto. I'm in the city blazing with my niggas. Just told the devil the score never settled. Yeah, see the prophets. I'm tired of these niggas keep talking about, you know, you respect my religion, I respect your religion. Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass need the prophets. You know, like we all come together. Cause you know what I'm saying? They say God so loved the world. God so loved the world and no. Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass need the prophets. Don't give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up to serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Yeah. Hey, gentlemen, y'all, we don't pray on our knees, nigga. Gotta stand up. You know what I'm saying? Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass shit. Oh, I'm with step, I'm solid for show. To the fake nigga, stay silent, I got it, let's go, let's go. I ain't taking no loss, ain't no talking when we got the flow. Ain't no peace, just play with your own. I'ma be loyal to the right arm. Tell him we can't keep it slate. And I can never let bygone be bygone. Got your baby mother on high, got your baby pass through the fire. Ain't she the prophets, that baby so belong to the Lord. How dare you abort it? Devil will fail, bitch, I can afford it. I prepare slaughter, you bring me my water. Push your leaders weak, let them lies slip through their teeth. Their ass need to stop it, ass she the prophets.
That's just the reality, Christians. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings. I know your pastor lied to you every Sunday for 30 years, but that's what the church is for, lying. That's why they exist, to lie the money out of your pockets.
Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass she the give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up to serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Gotta stand up to serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga.
I ain't have to die to meet the devil. Angels fell and landed in the ghetto. The earth was given to the hands of devils. Then we seen the rise of the devil. We fell for the lies of the devil. When we got high, it was the devil. I looked into the eyes of the devil. I ain't had to die to meet the devil.
I remember I was only 13 when I met the demon. Gave me a deuce and a bundle of cocaine. Told me to sell to my people, make sure you keep them fiending. If any try to shoot you, make sure that you leave them leaking. He said,
I'ma hold you down when problems pop up.
how you got me moving this dope? Want me in lockup? He said,
Don't you want the Benz vertible with the top cup?
Yeah.
Stop bitching, get in that kitchen, let it rock up. Bitches love the dope boy, especially when it's guap up. I know you know
who
Ron.
the plug from by the block up?
I'll tell you a little secret, make sure that you keep your mouth shut. Ron got a Lexus, crib in Philly and Texas. Trips to the Bahamas, just got a whip for his mama. He fucking up them commas, be honest, he seeing decent though.
I hear you, but I just seen Ron about a week ago. In fact, he ain't looking too good. His knees is kinda slow. I asked him why the struggle. He got stuck up for his bundle, but them 6 hollow tips in his legs what made him crumble.
He got a house and mama is living good.
Said the feds took it all. He right back in the hood. I see you try to play me. You gave us crack in the 80s. Made us abort our babies and making hoes out our ladies. I know you got me gravy, but Satan, you must be crazy. It's gonna take more than them cars when to amaze me. I seen niggas shoot for the stars, but being lazy. Never get their head at the clouds, so you don't faze me.
I guarantee that you gon' regret it. Remember I said it.
Nah, you could dead it.
What you saying? I can't win?
Nah, devil, nice try. So until we meet again,
I ain't have to die to meet the devil. Angels fell and landed in the ghetto. The earth was given to the hands of devils. Then we seen the rise of the devil. We fell for the lies of the devil. When we got high was the devil. I looked into the eyes of the devil. I ain't have to die to meet the devil.
I ain't religious or superstitious, but we been getting fucked and put to the side like a mistress. Police patrolling why? Because prison became a business. They murder one of ours and they start talking about forgiveness. We think that it's alright because we got public assistance. If this ain't hell, dog, what is this? Where was all lives mattered when they killed Osama? There was no peace talk like the Dalai Lama. Bush dropping bombs saying he gon' bring the drama. They got justice, man, they even caught the Boston bomber. But when we ride, they send the military in armor. When we fight oppression, then our people die a martyr. You reap what you sow, some people call it karma. When Christ return, y'all gon' get this harvest like a farmer. Don't tell me don't bring up the past no more. They still trying to settle the score with a side of Shakur. I changed my life and I'm just trying to live life right. But at night I look behind me and see flashing lights, patting me down. You got nothing that's poking me right. I don't smoke or push pills, I gave up my vice. So Mr. Officer, why you wanna take my life? And your honor, why you gave a homeboy's life? I've been wondering why you shot a homeboy twice. Pussy with a gun screaming out that he got a knife. He came from Habibi's spot, it was chicken and rice. Shit's trife, I'm just giving visuals like Skype. Ask Trayvon, Mike Brown, Akai Gurley, Eric Garner, Sean Bell, Philando, Alton Sterling, Jaquan McDonald. The white man is so devilish. Ask Hammurabi, he'll tell you who the devil is. The white man is so devilish. Ask Hammurabi, he'll tell you who the devil is. I ain't have to die to meet the devil. Angels fell and landed in the ghetto. The earth was given to the hands of devils. Then we seen the rise of the devil. We fell for the lies of the devil. When we got high was the devil. I looked into the eyes of the devil. I ain't have to die to meet the devil. I ain't have to die to meet the devil. Angels fell and landed in the ghetto. The earth was given to the hands of devils. Then we seen the rise of the devil.
Fuck wrong with you, boy? You know what time it is, nigga. Better watch how you step in. Yeah. But that was my nigga. I'm in it, yo. Got my nigga Rewan with me. But that was my niggas, it'll be an honor. You know what I'm saying? Under commanding General, your honor. That shit ain't gon' stop till we on top and we ballin', my nigga. We be fly as fuck, you know them bitches be stalking my niggas. That shit'll never change and it's the same with all my niggas. City to city, I should be at home, that's what my ribs say. But bitch, I'm grown, I'm in these streets and closed caption. Niggas know we bout that action. If a nigga play with me, then my I can gon' let him have it. Hey, thank you the shit, this truth, this shit. Nigga play, I let that Ruger hit. Get on them tracks, they be like, who is this? I'm rude with it. All them pussy niggas talkin' shit, yeah, I know they can't stand us, but we UPK, Louisiana, bitch, that's what I'm rippin'. And my niggas solid, number real ones in my section. If you wanna get down, put your boots on, start steppin'. Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. How you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood I lay my life down right now for all my sisters and brothers, because I love them, I see them dapping and hug them. It's amazing to see how well we adapt from the struggle. Born again from a life of sin, trapping the gutter. My mind frame was to kill my own kind. Feeling inferior, waking up ready to die. Run with them killers, so it's just a matter of time. For why take your life or let you take mine? That's when I realized the slaves killing slaves while the white man live to get old. We in them graves, shit got me feeling played. I opened the Bible, went through them records, found out we was royalty.
nation we erecting. Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Hey, hey. Hey, hey.
Shalom, Israel. Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shah Barak Thumb to the brothers watching. Yahweh Shemal Thumb Bashem, Yahweh Shah to the sisters. This is the ISUPK started out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. And since 1969, we've been pushing this truth. The only truth in this world that matters, that so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians are the descendants of the greatest people to ever walk the face of this earth, the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Tuned in with priest and officer 500 Hawamar, and this is ISUPK, Kentucky. Now, this is Sunday night, so this is what you didn't learn in history class. Now, what we're finna get into tonight. Now, I was asked to do a class like this, so we finna go ahead and get into it. We're gonna get into the indigenous people of the Americas. And this it's kind of funny to me because we just had camp in Cincinnati. Shout out Captain Patazar. We just had camp in Cincinnati, and an ABO came up and had some questions for the camp. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what an ABO is, it's short for Aboriginal, and it's a group of people that deny the transatlantic slave trade ever happened, and they try to say that every single black person is Indian. But anyway, we're finna get into it tonight, who the indigenous people of the Americas are. Did we walk across the Bering Strait, which is what the common narrative is, or are we Israelites, the 10 tribes that left out of the Assyrian captivity? So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, what is the Bering Strait theory? Now, it's not that big of a thing to me because I learned this in school, and anybody that paid attention to 8th grade geography learned this in school. So I'm not sure why it's a big thing now. I'm not sure why people use it to come against the 12 tribe, but we're finna walk it down. All right, what is the Bering Strait theory? The people of the Americas began when hunter-gatherers entered North America from Siberia via the Bering Strait land bridge 26,000 to 19,000 years ago. All right, here's your source. What happens when an archaeologist challenges mainstream thinking? We're finna challenge that mainstream thinking tonight. All right, so the Bering Strait theory says that the indigenous people of the Americas walked over from Siberia across the land bridge when it was iced over, and walked between Siberia and Alaska, and that's how the indigenous people populated the Americas. They say it's 26,000 and 19,000 years ago. Now, like I said, where did we first learn this at? Well, I learned this in school. All right. Now, McGraw-Hill Education is the largest publishing company for textbooks in the world right now. All right, McGraw-Hill is the largest publisher of textbooks in the world right now. All right, so these are the people that pump what we believe about history in our textbooks. Now, you might remember a couple of years back, McGraw-Hill got into some trouble. All right, it says October 2015, McGraw-Hill Education was accused of whitewashing history after it published a caption in a geography textbook referring to slaves as workers. All right, here's your source. Textbook company to update description of slaves as workers after criticism 2015. So the largest textbook company in the world today is already pushing propaganda to try to change American history. They try to make slaves seem like they were workers. They're trying to change the narrative from the transatlantic slave trade to the transatlantic migration. But these are the people that's teaching our children in history class 5 days a week. All right. So again, this is where we get our education from. This is where our American history education comes from. Let's take it back just a little bit further. All right. Horace Mann, this is the devil that invented the concept of public school. All right. He was a Whig Party politician, and he's known as the founder of the American educational system. And he was quoted as saying, jails and prisons are the complement of the schools. So the very same person that's responsible for the invention of the public school system was quoted saying that jails and prisons are the complements of schools. Now, what is he saying? Y'all heard of the concept called the school to prison pipeline. If you're not familiar with it, I did a class on it a couple of weeks back. But basically, the school to prison pipeline it's a system set up to get you ready for prison, right? Which is why you walk through the very same lunch line that you do in prison. You get the trays, right, at lunchtime, just like you do in prison. So basically, I did a class on the school to prison pipeline a while back. Check it out, ISUPK, Kentucky, which you ain't learned in history class. Now, Horace Mann is the founder of the public school system. All right, McGraw-Hill is the largest textbook company in the world, and they've already been accused of whitewashing history on more than one occasion. And this is where we get our concept of the Bering Strait theory from. Again, the Bering Strait theory says that 20,000 years ago, there was an iced over land bridge. People from Siberia walked over, and that's how we populated the Americas. All right, let's walk. Now, why do the indigenous people even have to come from somewhere? Why do we even have to come from somewhere? Well, the reason that we all have to come from somewhere is because the belief in the evolutionary model, the belief in the out of Africa concept, and the evolution of modern human beings, right? From lower primates to where we are today. And guess where the so-called white man, the devil that the Bible speaks of, guess where he puts himself on that evolutionary chart? Now, of course, he puts himself on the top. This is an excerpt from a book called Crania Americana, and it shows the differences between races. And the devil that wrote this book made supposed similarities between black people and apes. Now, this is where we get the concept of evolution from. This is where we get the concept of out of Africa from, and as well as a concept called scientific racism. Now, there's a book called The Descent of Man that was written by Charles Darwin. He said, in some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. This is from Descent of Man, Charles Darwin. He's talking about the civilized races will almost certainly exterminate the savage races. Now, when he's talking about savage races, who is this devil talking about? Again, the so-called white man, our oppressor, puts himself at the top of the evolutionary chain and puts so-called blacks, Hispanics, and American Indians at the bottom, close to apes and other primates. All right. Next source, it says the Indians inhabiting this country were fierce savages. Now, this is from a United States Supreme Court case, Leslie versus McIntosh. And during that proceeding, it called the indigenous people of the Americas savages. Now, again, this is where scientific racist theory comes from. And again, it all comes from the fact, the idea that everybody has to come from somewhere. Everybody has to come out of this African model. humanity starting in Africa, everybody evolving from lower primates, lower apes, and evolving up to where we are today. And again, they put the so-called white man at the top. Now, that's why we have to come from somewhere, and that's where the theory of the Bering Strait comes from. Now, let's walk it down a little further. All right, these are the savages right here, the so-called savages that our oppressor saw when he got here. Now, if you're a so-called black man in a fake-ass Israelite group that don't like Indians and Hispanics, I got to ask the question. If you look at the sisters on the page right here, the Seminole Indians on the page right here, if you're a so-called black man in a fake-ass Israelite group and you don't like Indians and Mexicans, I got to ask the question. Did you try to holler at Selena and Maria at one point and they shut you down? And now all of a sudden, blacks and all of a sudden Indians and Hispanics ain't Israelites no more? All right, let's walk. Like I said, Charles Darwin, if you believe in the Bering Strait theory, if you believe in the out of Africa theory, if you believe in scientific racism, then that means you believe in Charles Darwin. All these things go together. Like I said, if you believe in the Bering Strait theory, you have to believe in the out of Africa theory, scientific racism, as well as Charles Darwin. Now, my question is, how come the indigenous people of the Americas, the Native Indians, how come they don't know a thing about it? They don't know a thing about the Bering Strait theory. All right, let's talk about it. Now, this is from a source called Voices of America Radio. And this is an interview. This is an interview with a Puerto Pecha Indian that's down there in Mexico. His name is Alexander Ewan. Now, he said that dominant science believed in the concept of superiority, said Alexander Ewan, and that created an idea that either people were genetically inferior or that were stages of civilization and Indians were at the lowest stage. And this is what so-called white science taught, that our oppressor was at the very top and Indians were at a lower stage. He said Ewan is a member of the Puerto Pecha Nation. He wrote a book called The Encyclopedia of the American Indian in the 20th Century. Now, he continues, he said, early scientists felt that the primitives they discovered in the Americas did not have the technology to have sailed oceans. And this is going to be important here in a minute. He says, so they decided that Indians had to reach North America by some unknown land bridge. They found their answer in the Bering Strait. Source, Voice of America Radio Network. So let's break this down. Let's walk this down for a minute. He said that early scientists felt that primitives, now when he's talking about the primitive, he's talking about the Native Indians, that they discovered in the Americas didn't have the technology to sail ships, right? And like I said, because of this out of Africa theory, everybody has to come from somewhere, right? And it's like, since the belief was we didn't know how to sail ships, that means we had to walk to the Americas some kind of way, right? So it said that they decided that the Indians reached North America by some unknown land bridge. They found their answer in the Bering Strait. So like I said, scientific racism, Charles Darwin, and out of Africa theory is the whole reason why we believe that we had to walk some land bridge to get here. All right. Now, this is an image of the Puerto Pecha Indians. Like I said, they're down there in Mexico. Now, let me ask you a question. Like you said, the Bering Strait land bridge theory comes out of a belief that the Native Indians are inferior and the Native Indians are savages, and that we didn't possess the ability to sail ships. And because we didn't have the ability to sail ships, we had to have walked across the Bering Strait land bridge. Well, let me ask you a question. If I could prove that the Native Indians, if I could prove that we knew how to sail ships, that means I would disprove the Bering Strait theory, correct? Anybody in the chat, go ahead and tap it in. Go ahead and type it in. If I could prove that the native Indians had the technology to sail ships, that means that disproves the Bering Strait theory, correct? And it's not coming from some world-renowned geologist or anthropologist. It's coming from Officer 500 in the ISUPK under Commander General Rihanna. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right. Now, there's a statue that was found in France, right? A bronze statue uncovered in France. Here's an image of it. And it is, without a doubt, 100% certain that it's a statue of a native Indian. And again, it was discovered in France. And a Frenchman wrote a book about it back in 1868. All right, it's a book written in French. It's called Bronze Antiques. And like I said, the whole book's in French. Now, I don't read French, so I did my due diligence to get it translated into English. And here's what it says. It says the shape of the skull, that of the nose, of the mouth, everything in bronze recalls the red race of the New World. Now, when he's talking about the red race of the New World, he's talking about the American Indians. Again, here's the image of the statue. All right. It says there is perhaps the image of some Gauchet or a Carib of the islands of the Atlantic Ocean. It says, see about the Indians carried by the currents on the shores of Northern Europe and given as a present to Q. Metellus Celer, proconsul of the Gauls around 60 BC, the testimony of Cornelius Nepos, quoted by Pomponius Mela and by Pliny. So it's got quoted by two Roman sources, and it's saying that native Indians, American Indians, was traveling by boat between the Roman Empire and the Americas as late as 60 BC. All right, this is absolute proof in a book with two Roman sources that the Native American Indians had the technology to sail ships back and forth across the Atlantic. So like I said, if I could prove that the American Indian had the technology to sail ships, that disproves the Bering Strait theory, because they only promoted the Bering Strait theory because of the belief that the Indians didn't have the technology to sail ships. So like I said, the Bering Strait theory has been debunked. And again, not from a world-renowned scientist, not from some archaeologist, but an officer of 500 in the ISUPK under Commander General Rihanna. All right, this right here proves that the Bering Strait theory is bullshit. All right, American Indians absolutely had the technology to sail ships back in the BC times. All right, so since we're not Siberians that walked across some damn land bridge 20,000 years ago, then who are we? Now, I'm not going to get into artifacts today. This isn't going to be a 12 tribe breakdown. Captain Carter's headquarters already did the baddest 12 tribe breakdown. Shout out to Captain Carter's headquarters. So, but we are finna get into some old books. Now, the first book we're finna get into, it says Archives of Aboriginal Knowledge, for any Aboriginal watching. Archives of Aboriginal Knowledge. All right, containing all of the original papers laid before Congress, history, antiques, language, ethnology, pictography, rites, superstitions, and mythology of the Indian tribes of the United States. Here's your source. All right, it says, in regard to the manners, customs, and habits of the wild tribes of the Western Territory. Now, when we're talking about the Western Territory, we're talking about everything west of the Mississippi River. We're talking about people like Geronimo and them. All right, it says of the Western Territory, a true and more correct type than any I've ever seen may be found in the ancient history of the Jews or Israelites after their liberation from Egyptian bondage. All right. So this book is comparing the customs and the traditions of the native Indians west of the Mississippi, comparing the customs and traditions to the Jews and Israelites. It says the medicine lodge of the Indian may be compared to the place of worship or tabernacle of the Jews. And the sacrifices, offerings, purifications, ablutions, and anointings may all be found and practiced amongst those people. The customs of the Indian women at certain periods after childbearing are almost those of Jewish women. So again, this book, Archives of Aboriginal Knowledge, reporting the history, antiques, language, ethnology, pictography, rites, superstitions, and mythology of the Indian tribes of the United States. This book is comparing the customs and traditions of the native Indians to the Jews or Israelites. And again, it's talking about the Indians west of the Mississippi, like the brother Geronimo right here. Now, again, if you're in a fake Israelite group and you hate Indians and Hispanics, how do you explain this source right here? All right, if there's anybody watching that hates Indians and Hispanics, explain this source to me right here. All right. Next source. It says Israelites and Indians, a parallel in planes of culture. Address of Garrett Mallory, Vice President in Section 2 of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. All right, let's walk it down. It says many authors have contended that the North American Indians were descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. All right, it's right here in black and white. It's right here in black and white. This book was written in 1889. And again, it says many authors have contended that the North American Indians were descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. All right, it says the authors of the school mention have for the same excuse the fact, which I freely admit with greater emphasis, that an astounding number of the customs of North American Indians are the same as those recorded in the ancient Hebrews, but the lessons to be derived from the parallels between Indians and Israelites is very different from that of the descendant advocated. All right, so again, another source. This is source number 2 that calls the North American Indians, and it compares the customs of these people to the Israelites. All right, and this, so the first source was talking about the Indians west of the Mississippi, again, like Geronimo and them. Now, the second source is talking about the Indians of the Southeast, right? So the Southeast Indians, we're talking about the Choctaw, Chickasaw, we're talking about the Creek and the Seminole. So we got an image of some Choctaw Indians right here. Now, again, if you're a so-called black man in a fake-ass Israelite group that don't like Indians and Hispanics, now these Indians here are a little darker. Are they okay or no? Are they okay or no? Do you only like dark-skinned Indians or are light-skinned Indians wild too? Or do you just don't like none of them? Right? All right, let's walk this Choctaw down real quick. All right, it said the Choctaw of the United States agreed to a total of 9 treaties. By the last 3, the U.S. gained vast land concessions in the Southeast. As a part of the Indian removal, despite not having waged war against the United States, the majority of the Choctaw were forcibly relocated to Indian territory from 1831 to 1833. The Choctaw government in Indian territory had 3 districts, each with its own chief, who together with the town chief sat on their national council. Now, those Choctaw that chose to stay in the state of Mississippi were considered U.S. citizens. They were the first non-European ethnic group to be granted citizenship. All right. Now, why is that important? It says in Article 14 in the 1830 treaty with the Choctaws stated Choctaws may wish to become citizens of the United States under the 14th article of the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek. Now, why is that important? Here's why. It says the only classifications for free people on the 1840 census. Now, this was 10 years after the Choctaw gained citizenship in Mississippi. All right, the only classifications for free people on the 1840 federal census was free white person and free colored person. All right. So by the time the Choctaw became citizens in Mississippi, there was only 2 classifications for free people: white person and colored person. All right. So this is how the Choctaw Indians in Mississippi went under colored. And if you know anything about the Census Bureau, we know the colored was replaced by Negro in 1920. This is how certain Choctaw Indians were reclassified as Negro, and we know that that was changed in the 1980s to African American. All right. So let me ask you a question. If you're a so-called black man, I'm going to repeat this all night. If you're a so-called black man in a fake-ass Israelite group, and you hate Indians and Hispanics, well, I just showed that Indians were a particular group of Choctaw Indians were reclassified as colored and Negro. So what if you found out? What if you were a so-called black man and found out that you were one of these Indians that were reclassified as colored? Would you still hate Indians and Mexicans? Or would you accept Indians and Mexicans as Israelites now? All right, let's go. Here's an image of some Mississippi Choctaw right here. Shout out my Choctaw Indians. All right, shout out my Choctaw Indians. All right, next source, publication of the American Jewish Historical Society. Here's your next source. All right, the Jews of New England, other than Rhode Island, prior to 1800. It says the Puritan Revolution in England had awakened a keen interest in the Jewish race, and this interest was powerfully reflected in early New England history. It is in Massachusetts that this tendency was most strongly exhibited. Skip down to 1649. Eliot the missionary announced that the Indians were of Hebrew origin. Right? It says the Indians were of Hebrew origin as early as 1649. Now I hear quite often in people that try to come against the 12 tribe chart, try to say that making Indians Israelites, that comes from the Mormons. All right, that comes from the Mormons. But the Mormon Church wasn't founded until 1830. Right? The Mormon Church wasn't founded until 1830. This is a 1649 source what somebody is calling the North American Indians of Hebrew origin. So again, the idea that Indians are Israelites has nothing to do with the Mormon Church. It goes all the way back to 1649, where it calls the Indians of Hebrew origin. All right, it goes on to say that in the following year, Downham issued an appeal to Englishmen for the contributions to Indian missions on the plea that those of New England were of Jewish descent. It says when in 1650, Thorogood published his Jews in America, Eliot of Massachusetts at once proclaimed that the 37th chapter of Ezekiel applied to the Indians. All right. So another source that's calling the North American Indians Israelites. Now, again, if you hate Indians and Mexicans, explain this source to me. Go ahead and break it down for me. Maybe you know more than me. All right. So when it's talking about the Indians of Massachusetts, right, it's talking about Indians like this. And as you can see, the brother's got he's rocking the shield of David, right? The Magun Dawadah in Hebrew. Now, if Indians are supposed to be Siberians that walked across some damn land bridge 20,000 years ago, How does this North American Indian know about the Maganda Wada? If anybody in the fake Israelite group is even watching, explain this to me. If Indians walked across the Bering Strait land bridge 20,000 years ago, how does this Indian know about the Maganda Wada? All right, let's walk it. Next source, Ecclesiastical History of New England. All right, religious but also moral. Joseph Felt, Volume 2, Boston, 1862. All right, it says, July 8th, Eliot communicates with his purpose to Whitfield for translating the Bible into the Indian tongue and educating some Indian youth, and mentions the need of help from the charitable. He previously communicated his opinion that the Indians here were of Hebrew origin. So how many sources do we have here? 4? I want everybody in the fake Israelite group to debunk this one. Source number 1, Archives of Aboriginal Knowledge. All right, Israelites and Indians, a parallel in planes of culture. And publications of the American Jewish Historical Society. And the Ecclesiastical History of New England. Anybody in the fake Israelite group, go ahead and debunk these for me. All right, so when we're talking about the Indians of the Northeast Coast, we're talking about the Narragansett Indians right here. All right, we're talking about the Narragansett Indians. These are the Indians of the Northeast. And as you can see, we got darker skinned Native Indians and lighter skinned Native Indians. All right. Now, like I said, if you're in a fake Israelite group and you hate Indians, are the dark skinned ones okay? Right? Or are the lighter skinned ones okay? Answer me that. All right. Next source. All right. Literary Digest, September 21st, 1912. Are the Indians of Hebrew origin? All right, William Penn gave the clue to many subsequent biblical scholars in declaring that he had found in the American Indians the lost tribes of Israel. So this is all over. This is all over early American history. This is all over early American history. This is Literary Digest, September 21st, 1912. Are the Indians of Hebrew origin? William Penn gave the clue to many subsequent biblical scholars and declaring that he found in the American Indian the lost tribe of the nation of Israel. Not a lost tribe of Siberians, not a lost tribe of Aboriginals, but the lost tribes of the nation of Israel. All right, there's another image here. North American Indian. As you can see, he's rocking the Maganda Wada. He's rocking the Shield of David. All right, next source. I'm gonna hit y'all upside the head with these all night. All right, history of the American Indians, particularly those nations that joined in the Mississippi, East and West Florida, Georgia, South and North Carolina, and Virginia. So we talked about the Indians west of the Mississippi being described as Israelites. We talked about the Indians on the Northeast coast being described as Israelites. We talked about the Indians of the Southeast being described as Israelites. Now we're going to go into Georgia, North and South Carolina, and Florida. All right, it says, now let us turn to the copper color American Hebrews. It said, now let us turn to the copper color American Hebrews. It says, from the most exact observations I could make in the long time I traded among the American Indians, I was forced to believe them lineally descended from the Israelites. When he said lineally, he's not talking about some spiritual Israelite. He's talking about the actual ethnic lineal descendants of the Israelites. It says, I was forced to believe them lineally descended from the Israelites. And this is from History of the American Indians, particularly those nations that joined in the Mississippi, East and West Florida, Georgia, South and North Carolina, and Virginia. And when it's talking about Virginia, we're talking about the Chickahominy Indians right here. This is a Chickahominy Indian family in Virginia, 1918. And as you can see, the whole family here has a different variety of phenotypes, different skin tones, different hair textures, different facial features. All right, Chickahominy Indian family, Virginia, 1918. When we're talking about the Carolinas, we're talking about the Tuscarora Indians right here. Now, you might have heard of the Tuscarora Indians. All right, there was a devil named Walter Plecker who was responsible for attempting to paper genocide out of existence. Paper genocide out of existence, the Tuscarora Indians. All right, Walter Plecker asserted that Virginia Indians no longer existed. December 1943. It said Walter Plecker's policies pressured state agencies to reclassify most citizens claiming Indian identity as colored. Now, this was a devil that actually worked for Vital Statistics back in Virginia. And he's responsible for changing birth certificates from Indian to color. From Indian to color. Now, if you're a so-called black man in a fake Israelite group that hates Indians, how do you know that you're not descended of one of these North American Indians that was reclassified as color? Now, you might recognize Walter Plecker. He's in the image right here with Marcus Garvey. Now, I've asked this question before and I broke it down in the class. What's Marcus Garvey doing flicking up with a white supremacist, that's responsible for the paper genocide of the North American Indian? All right, Walter Plecker hated Indians, right? Walter Plecker hated Indians. Marcus Garvey hated Indians. And this is why you people in these fake-ass Israelite groups hate Indians too. All right, the so-called white man told you to hate Indians. Marcus Garvey told you to hate Indians, and now you hate Indians too. All right, here's an image of a Tuscarora Indian right here, 1881, and an image of Cherokee Freeman, 1877. Oh, Salaki, I can't say ass. What would I change it to?
You just fake Israelites.
It's fake. It's just fake Israelite.
Can't say ass.
Salaki. I guess we got to get our language together down here in Kentucky, don't we? All right, next source. I can't say ASS anymore. All right, no problem. All right, next source. Discourse on the evidences of the American Indians being the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. This is from 1837. Again, not the lost tribes of some Siberians that walked across a land bridge. It's not the lost tribes of some Aboriginals, but the lost tribes of Israel. Again, this is from 1837. All right, it says, it is, however, in the religious belief and ceremonies of the Indians that I propose showing some of the evidences of them being, as it is believed, descendants of the dispersed tribes. All right. One, their belief in one God. Two, in the communication by their time and the ceremonies of the new moon. Three, in their divisions of the year and 4 seasons, answering to the Jewish festivals and the Feast of Flowers, a Day of Atonement, the Feast of Tabernacles, shout out Feast of Tabernacle, and other religious holy days. So it's talking about the American Indians following the customs, the belief in one God, following the moon, and Israelite festivals like the Feast of Tabernacles and the Day of Atonement. And this is right here. The evidences of the American Indians being descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. All right. Another image of some North American Indians. This is a group of people called the Iroquois. All right, the Iroquois is actually who our oppressor got the American Constitution from. And as you can see, they're also rocking the Shield of David or the Magunda Wada. All right, next source. This is Letters and Notes of the Manners, Customs, and Condition of the North American Indians, Volume 2, New York, 1841. It says, the first and most striking fact amongst North American Indians that refers to us, the Jews, that of their origin worshiping in all parts the Great Spirit or Jehovah, as the Hebrews were ordered to do by divine precept, instead of a plurality of gods, as the ancient pagans and heathens did, and their idols of their own formations. All right, so it's talking about the American Indians following one God. It says the Indian tribes are everywhere divided into bands with chiefs, symbols, badges, etc. And many of their modes of worship I have found exceedingly like those of the Mosaic institution. It says amongst the Indians, as amongst the ancient Hebrew, the women were not allowed to worship with the men. So again, it's another source comparing the traditions, manners, and customs, and it's comparing the North American Indian with the Israelites. All right. And like I said before, a lot of y'all in the world got a problem with colorism. A lot of y'all in the world got a problem with colorism. And indigenous people of the Americas, like I said, come in different phenotypes, different hair textures, different skin tones, right? Different facial features. Now, we're going to break into a scripture real quick, Jeremiah 12:9, because there's a lot of people that don't believe that speckled bird is talking about color. Well, let's walk it down. Book of Jeremiah, chapter 12, verse 9, reads, mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye assemble, all the beasts of the field, come to devour. So the Bible says, mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. Well, let's break it down. Right, this is Strong's Concordance. All right, the definition of the breakdown of the word for speckled means colored and variegated. All right, now if y'all don't know what the word variegated means, I got the Oxford Dictionary for you. All right, variegated means an adjective exhibiting what? Exhibiting different colors. Now, if anybody in a fake Israelite group that doesn't believe the speckled bird is referring to color, explain this to me. Explain this to me. Type in the chat. Call the phone number. It's right here. 509-3733. All right, this is a breakdown of speckled bird from Strong's Concordance. And I got the definition for variegated right here at Oxford. It says exhibiting different colors. So a speckled bird doesn't mean colored. What does it mean? All right, let's walk. All right, the Seminoles of Florida. So we talked about the native Indians west of the Mississippi. We talked about the Southeastern Indians. We talked about the Northeastern Indians. We talked about the Indians on the East Coast. Now let's talk about the Seminoles of Florida. This is from 1920. And it says, today in the weird fastness of the Everglades, a wild band of Indians chant the name of the great Jehovah in the Hebrew tongue. A name that is meaningless in its original form to thousands of educated Americans. So, what is it saying? In his book from 1920, Seminoles of Florida, it's saying the Seminole Indians spoke Hebrew. So, if the indigenous people of the Americas walked across some land bridge 20,000 years ago, how are the Seminole Indians speaking Hebrew? And again, this book is from 1920. How are the Seminole Indians speaking Hebrew? Now, somebody has to answer this one. How are the Seminole Indians speaking Hebrew from this source right here, Seminoles of Florida, 1920? All right, type in the chat. Call a number. We got a source showing Seminole Indians speaking Hebrew. All right, here's images of Seminole Indians. Shout out my Seminole Indians.
That's right.
Shout out my Seminole Indians. All right, next source. It says, whenever a Seminole appeared darker than his fellows, it is said that his Yamasee ancestry is shown. Source, Florida Anthropologist by the Florida Anthropological Society, 1970. Next source, congressional serial set by the United States. All right, 1901, page 824, said the Yamasee Indians were Negroes, what were known afterwards as the fiercest of the Indian tribes of the South. So wait a minute. The Yamasee Indians were Negroes. Previous source said whenever a Seminole appeared darker than his fellows, it said that his Yamasee ancestry was shown. So we have Seminole Indians being referred to as Negroes in 1901. So another question. You're a so-called black man that hates Indians. How do you know that you're not just a descendant of an Indian that was reclassified as black? I'll wait. All right, next source. Let's go down to Mexico. Now you got a lot of people in fake Israelite groups that hate Mexicans. Well, right here, we have an image of a Mexican Indian, and again, here's the Maganda Wada. So we got the Maganda Wada all over the Americas. So here's the image from Mexico. And it's sporting a Maganda Wada. And that looks like a Mitri. Right, whole time it looks like a Mitri is wearing. So he's wearing a Mitri and a Maganda Wada. And if you look down here at the bottom, the brothers wearing armbands, just like the brothers in the UPK do today. But maybe you just hate the Mexicans that look like this. Maybe you just hate lighter skinned Mexicans like Pancho Villa. Maybe if you're in one of these fake Israelite groups that don't like Indians and Mexicans, maybe you just like darker skinned Mexicans like this. Now let me ask you a question. Are these darker skinned Mexicans okay? Or do you not accept them either? Maybe you just like dark skinned Mexicans. Or maybe you don't like Mexicans at all. Maybe, like I said earlier, you tried to holler at Maria back in high school. You tried to holler at Selena back in high school. She shut you down. And then nowadays you hate Mexicans and Mexicans ain't Israelites. All right. Next source. The most ancient traditions induce us to believe that Negroes were the first inhabitants of Mexico. Well, hold on a second. Do we have a source calling Mexicans Negroes back from 1919? We have a source calling Mexicans Negroes back from 1919. All right, it says, after the conquest of Mexico by Cortez, 1519 to 1520, the Aztecs left Mexico and gradually traversed the country until in 1620, we find them in Alabama, where they added other bands to their ranks. The British named them Creeks from the many small streams that traversed the country. Thus, the great Aztec Muscogee tribe of the Mexican Empire, vanquished by Cortez 100 years later, the Creek Confederacy, from which branched the who? The Seminoles. It's from 1910, and it's talking about a group of Aztec Indians that left Mexico and moved to Alabama. So we have right here, we have Mexican Indians and Seminole Indians, right, forming tribes together. And I just showed back here that Seminoles were called Negro back in 1970. So we have Seminole Indians, Mexican Indians banding together and forming tribes, but we have people in fake Israelite groups today that hate Indians and Mexicans. That makes sense to me. They're mad, they mad. All right. Let's go to Texas. Now, if anybody knows me, know I grew up in Texas. I might know a little bit of something about Texas history. And if you're in a fake Israelite group and you live in Texas, around Hispanics and Indians, maybe you live in the Panhandle or West Texas, but if you're in a fake Israelite group and you live in Texas, you might want to listen up. All right, let's walk this down. Juneteenth. Talk about Juneteenth for a second. Now, the transatlantic slave trade was abolished in 1807. That means that no more slaves were being brought from the west coast of Africa. We know of two off top, right? One of them being the Clotilda, which has already been shown to be a forgery. But anyway, if the transatlantic slave trade was abolished in 1807, Galveston wasn't founded until 1836. So my question was, the slaves that were freed Juneteenth, 1865, where'd they come from? Again, the transatlantic slave trade was shut down. There were no more imports of slaves coming out of the west coast of Africa. It was shut down in 1807. Galveston wasn't founded until 1836. So who were the slaves that were freed June 19th, 1865? Well, let's talk about it. All right, here's your source. Period of 1817 to 1820, Galveston, Texas. All right, it says the savages, all right, talking about the native Indians, who were the coastal clan of the interior tribes. We're talking about the indigenous people of Galveston. It said they were what? Dark skin with coarse black hair. All right, dark skin with coarse black hair. Now, the indigenous people of Galveston were the Atacapa Indians. Here's an image of them right here. As you can see, they're dark skin, so-called quote-unquote black features. I don't know what that is, but so-called quote-unquote black features with the afro. These are the Indians. These are the indigenous people of the Americas. So my question was, if the transatlantic slave trade was shut down in 1807, Galveston wasn't discovered until 1836, who were the slaves that were freed June 19th, 1865? Now, my next question is, if you're a so-called black man from Texas, descendant of slaves, knowing that the transatlantic slave trade was abolished in 1807, Galveston wasn't founded until 1836, and Texas doesn't even become a state till 1845. What if you found out that you're actually a descendant of these people right here? The Atacapa Indians, the indigenous people of East Texas, that were enslaved by our oppressor, and these were the slaves that were freed June 19th, 1865. Would you still hate Indians if you found out you were descended from these people right here? That's my question. Now, this is ISUPK, Kentucky, under Commander General Yohana. They don't call me 23 and Howard Mar for nothing. All right, if you found out you were descended from these people, would you still hate Indians? All right. All right, next source is, all right, archives.gov, PBS Historical Detectives. It says, as the population moved west into new territories, now we're talking about Georgia, right, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas. It says slaves were transported and sold to fill the need for labor in these new eras. Slaves were sold in the southern and old Southwest. States included Western Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, and who? Texas. Now, if you're in a fake Israelite group from Texas, you might want to pay attention here. All right, between 1808 and 1865, New Orleans became the largest slave market from the 1820s to the early 1840s, selling over 2,600 slaves. The U.S. custom houses, which were created by the Congress in 1789 as a part of the Department of Treasury, kept track of the movement of slaves requiring manifests. All right, so it says an act passed by Congress 1789. It says by the Department of Treasury, they kept slave manifests, right? They wanted to track every single slave that was coming and going. So manifests were mandatory. It says during this early part of the 19th century, thousands of free people of color arrived and were affected by the same laws that required slave manifests. So what is it saying? We have people called free people of color arrived in New Orleans, and that was a French term. That was for the French colonies. And it says, the early part of the 19th century, thousands of free people of color arrived in New Orleans where they were affected by the same laws that required the slave manifest. So these free people of color coming out of New Orleans, coming out of Louisiana, these free people of color were people that were being, these free people of color were the ones that were being kidnapped and trafficked. And like I said, it also required that very same slave manifest that Congress passed in 1789. So what's the definition of free people of color? Let's read it. All right, in the context of the history of slavery, we're talking about slavery, we're talking about free people of color being trafficked, being affected by the same laws that require the slave manifest. Free people of color were primarily people of mixed African, European, and who? Native American descent. All right, free people of color, mixed African, European, and Native American descent. We're talking about a slave trade that existed in the Americas after the transatlantic slave trade was shut down. We're talking about a domestic slave trade that mainly took place in Louisiana, and it's talking about the trafficking of Native American slaves right here. Again, here's your source. Here's a definition of free people of color. Here's your source about these free people of color coming to the old Southwest states like Texas between 1808 and 1865. 1808 is important because the transatlantic slave trade is shut down. We're talking about Native American slaves that were being trafficked in the domestic slave trade between 1820 and 1840. And they were trafficked to Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas. Again, if you're from Texas, pay attention. All right, here's an image of these free people of color. Like I said earlier, Native American Indians come in several different phenotypes, light skin, dark skin, right? Different hair textures, different facial features. And we're talking about people that look like this being trafficked in a domestic slave trade after the transatlantic slave trade was shut down. All right. Texas Frontier Heroes, Seminole Indian Scouts. All right, if you look right here, every one of these scouts look like, to me, a so-called black man, so-called tribe of Judah, right? But it says the Texas Seminole Scouts were descendants of who? Runaway slaves. All right, these Texas Frontier Heroes, Seminole Indian Scouts, the Texas Seminole Scouts were descendants of runaway slaves. Source, Black Past. So again, if you hate Indians, how do you know, especially if you're from West and North Texas, how do you know you're not descendant of one of these people here? How do you know you're not a descendant of a Seminole Indian Scout and the Seminole Indian Scouts were descendants of runaway slaves? All right, Seminole Indians, part of West Texas history. Again, if you're a so-called black man living in West Texas, North Texas, the Panhandle, right, what the oppressor used to call the Texas frontier, if you're from that area, you might want to pay attention to this. All right, you might want to study the Seminole Indians part in West Texas history. This is the image of Chief Wildcat right here. Chief Wildcat of the Seminole Indians. Shout out my Seminole Indians. If you look, he's got an afro. He's got an afro. You can see the afro sticking out of the bottom of the mitre. So we have a Seminole Indian wearing the mitre, right? You see the afro poking out underneath the mitre, and you might want to study the Seminole Indians part in West Texas history. All right. It says during the Seminole Wars, right, again, shout out my Seminole Indians. During the Seminole Wars, 1816 to 1858, the Seminoles fought the United States Army in an attempt to resist relocation to the West. The Indian Removal Act beginning in 1830 meant the dispersal of their people to Oklahoma, Mexico, and where? Texas. So we're talking about the history of the Seminole Indians in the frontier areas of Texas. We're talking about West Texas and North Texas in the Panhandle. All right, source, Texas State Historical Association. All right. So I think we've proven who the indigenous people are not. I think we showed immediately that we are not descendants of some Siberian that walked across the land bridge 20,000 years ago. I think it's pretty apparent from the sources that we pulled tonight, source after source after source. I think we've proven that the native Indians are in fact Israelites. So the native Indians are Israelites. And I showed earlier that we knew how to sail ships. How did the Israelites get here? We're going to look in the Bible. All right, the Bible is the history book of so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians. All right, we're going to start in 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verse 40. It says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land in the time of Osea the king, whom Salmanasseh, king of Assyria, led away captive. And he carried them over the waters, and so they came into their own land. So we're talking about the 10 tribes who were in captivity under the Assyrian Empire. Right, the 10 tribes of Israel in captivity under the Assyrian Empire. All right, verse 41, 2nd Ezra 13 and 41. It says, but they took this counsel amongst themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where mankind never dwelt. No one is talking about a place where mankind never dwelt. It's talking about the Americas. All right, by this time period in world history, every other continent that's populated has been populated. Europe was populated, Asia was populated, the Middle East was populated, Australia was populated, and Africa was populated. So when it's talking about where mankind never dwelt, it can only be talking about the Americas, because the American Indian is the indigenous people here. So this can only be talking about the Americas. So we've proven tonight that the indigenous people are not Siberians that walked across a land bridge. And if you missed it, just go back to the beginning, watch the letter, go back to the beginning. We prove that the indigenous people are not Siberians that walked across some land bridge. We prove that the indigenous people are in fact Israelites. And if you read the Bible, which is the history book of Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, go to 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 40 and 41. And it's talking about we would go forth into a further country where mankind never dwelt. And again, that can only be talking about the Americas, because every other continent on the planet that was populated was already populated. So with that, we'll go ahead and end it. All right, what you didn't learn in history class, episode 20. Shalom. Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shah Barak Atham. Yahweh Shemal Atham B'Shem Yahweh Shah. Class dismissed.